the panel discussion. Now I would like to call the moderator of the panel discussion here, Mr. Nitin Verma sir, who is the director and QC from Leeds University MTD Medical System India Private Limited Gurugram. Please give a big hand for him. Come on everyone. And now I would like to call the esteemed panelist, Dr. KB Sood. So please come up on the stage. He's the Managing Director of NOUS Hospital Consultant Private Limited. Can we have a huge round of applause for him? Alright, so next for the esteemed panelist, I would like to call Ravideep Singh sir. Please come up on the stage, who is the Associate Director and Creative Designer Architect. Can we have a huge round of applause for him? And now I would like to call Mr. Tanuj Agarwal sir. Please come up on the stage, who is the Associate Director of AECOM Chief Healthcare Architect, AIMS Delhi. So please give a big hand for them. And now the stage is yours.
Well, thanks a lot for having this panel discussion, and it's a really honor to be sitting in this panel and moderating this with all the industry giants sitting next to me. And of course, Mr. Afzal and Mr. Manish for organizing this event, wherein we are discussing the infrastructure issues and suggestions and how this industry may go forward in future. Today's topic, what we are discussing is about service lines, their importance, and how to ensure a safe hospital. As you all know, when we go to a hospital, or in fact any building, without these service lines, a building or a hospital cannot function. These service lines, specifically medical gas lines, plumbing, fire, electrical, and HVAC systems, are specialized, tuned for making a hospital workable. Like a body cannot run without the cardiovascular system or the nervous system, a hospital cannot perform without these service lines. And in pandemic, we witnessed that failure, I wouldn't call it failure, but underperformance of oxygen lines took the hospitals and everybody on a standstill. So with that note, I would like to take, get your take on the importance of these service lines, medical gas piping system, electrical system, fire safety, plumbing, and to a certain extent, air conditioning is also become like a part of the service line, not just limited towards the environmental, but it also become like a functional line into this area. So, sir, starting with KB Sood, sir, what's important? I want to know about the importance about these lines in a hospital. How important are these lines?
Basically, all MEP services make the hospital building fully functional. You can actually derive the total functionality out of a building by deploying the right level and kind of MEP services. To give you an example, if your HVAC system is working as it should be working, there are standards for that in terms of ASHRAE or FGI. Even our National Building Code has got certain parameters for that. Then you can actually reduce the average length of stay of a patient by 1 or 2 days. We took this seriously, and when I was doing INHS Ashwini, we asked all military hospitals to be centrally air conditioned. Because once you are centrally air conditioned, you can filter out bacteria, you can control the nosocomial infection. And from that point onwards, Army has not built a non-air conditioned hospital. And they have realized the profit and they have realized the outcome of that, because today all military hospitals average length of stay could be standardized across the disease profiles. We have also used this in other hospitals that we have built, and we have found that we were able to reduce the average length of stay. But now the importance of this HVAC, importance is that you have to maintain it. If your filter is choked, what is the point? So there has to be a constant monitoring as well as maintenance. That is where your building management systems or intelligent building management systems come into vogue. We have seen some hospitals install that, but they don't maintain that. That is not correct. So there should be a proper mechanism or system for monitoring. To tell you, the cost of MEP services in a hospital vary between 15 to 25% of the total cost. And the maintenance cost for these services varies from 3.5% to about 12.5% of the establishment cost. That will depend how large is your system, how complicated is your system. So this is how these MEP services contribute to patient care. I can go on, but I think one example is enough.
Sure, sir. Sir, we can have a similar take about what's your opinion about the importance of these service lines.
Yeah, service lines, like, hospital will be any other building without service lines. You need your medical gases, your electrical systems, your plumbing systems in place. So these, as we all have heard in last 2 years about oxygen supply being not available, the hospitals were not ready for that kind of surge, so they didn't had enough oxygen supplies, the storage with them. So all these PSA plants came into place, although they have not been used so much, but due to some other reasons. But other than medical gases, electrical services plays a very important role. As an architect, I see the lighting plays a very important role. In patient areas, the inpatient beds, the circadian clock, we design the lighting as per so that it enhances the healing environment. The patient feels, more daylight is available. If at night also the lighting is so, rendered that it enhances the patient recovery. And other aspect I would like to, stress upon is the IT services. In a hospital situation, IT services always take a back burner, but now it has become more and more important. All your equipments, all your patient data, all your packs, they all run on IT. So like presently we are doing AIMS New Delhi. So AIMS is integrating all their IT services. All their departments have different servers. They have different, softwares, and even the packs don't talk to each other. A pack server from one department will not be able to integrate to other department. So now AIMS is developing a integrated medical university system which will connect all the services and will be a single system, non-proprietary system, which will integrate not only the AIMS but its satellite centers also, like NCI Jhajjar or other. AIMS has about 5 centers.
Sure. I mean, what I wanted to discuss also as designers and consultants, what we see from the industry as a installation company, that in many projects the design standards are not, there is no one standard. So like there are, I can speak about medical gases, that there is American standard, British standard, but there is no one standard. Now, when it comes to designing and planning from as your part, what's your take on getting one standard done for maybe for one full hospital, so it becomes easier to maintain? The challenge which the industry is facing, that we have one part as Indian standard, other part as British standard, third part as American standard, and all these standards not necessarily are compatible. So that's when the system will be implemented, but at the time of maintenance, then it becomes a real problem. So as a designers, do you face, as designers and planners, Do you face similar problems, not just in MGPS, but other in totality of services also? And what do we do about it? Because that really becomes a problem in terms when it comes to usage and maintenance of the system.
The reason for not for such things is like we have not been able to develop Indian standards for all these services. We rely on CE, we rely on NFPA, we rely on all standards built outside. So like Mr. Sood was earlier mentioning about IS standards, so which are not in place. In terms of design, hospital design is like we follow certain planning standards, but as a architectural design, each hospital designer can give a different solution. But of course, the user requirements has to be met. So if it is a teaching hospital, we follow NMC guidelines. But if it is a corporate hospital or a standalone hospital, then it is as per the user requirement and the designer's experience.
What you have said is not correct. Today we have ISO. India is a signatory to ISO. ISO is doing what is called globalized, harmonized standards. Now USA FDA has adopted ISO 7396. UK has adopted that. Europe has adopted that. In fact, 150 countries have adopted, including India, because we are a signatory to ISO. It has not become prevalent here because we were used to NFPA or HTM, and the industry has still not transformed to 7396 completely. But today in India, you have to follow ISO 7396, and that is same standard is being followed in rest of the world. And this is happening for a lot of services in hospitals. I only know about hospitals. Like ASHRAE 171 has been adopted by FDA in toto. They have not changed even one word. BIS also, we have adopted ISA 17. So this is how it is happening. That means at the end of the day, you will have hospitals following same standard. You could be anywhere. There is a lot of problem in terms of the cost of implementing that standard. So that is where you will be feeling variation, but gradually we should overcome these cost and economic factors and do, because every human life is same in terms of value, whether it is in USA, UK or India or Europe. So that effort is being made. ISO Secretariat is doing. They have already given more than 145 standards which are globalized, and about 70 of them apply to hospitals. We have already adopted more than 12 or 14 standards, published, gazetted, so they have become applicable. So that is how it will be standardized.
So just to add to it, you said that ISO standards is there, but my question is that when it comes to implementation, all the standards are mentioned. So if ISO 7396 is the globally accepted standard, why do we not just stick to it, so that at least it's clear that one project, one standard? The problem occurs when we have multiple standards mentioned in the same requirement. So yes, if ISO becomes tomorrow the dominant standard, or Indian standard comes across, let's have one standard, one type of checking, one type of equipments. Or in America, they follow NFPA. So all their products, all their solutions are NFPA. Designing, everything is done on NFPA. As of now, the industry, the problem what is facing is that multiple standards are put in the same project. So it becomes little bit mixed bag for everyone. But yes, moving ahead to the on the discussion, I would like to know about now, after once we have done procurement or planning has been done, installations are also being done. And not just to one specific service, on all services, what sort of checks and balances are done, if any, when it comes to commissioning and acceptance of standard? I think we can have our other fellow panelists view also on it, that including all fire safety, and I know there's NOC for the fire which is required, but for other services, who checks, and are there any third party validation done for these services to make this hospital safe to use? In most other countries, like in I know for sure in HTM in UK, before the contractor hands over the the hospital or to the user, neither the even the consultants are not part of this third party validation. An independent agency would verify.
That's the common practice.
That's the common. But how is it being practiced here, or what's the level of implementation of this third party validation in our projects?
So I think most owners would rely on the manufacturer commissioning, the commissioning report that's vetted by a third party professional. And I think that is the best bet most healthcare providers are taking. But I think there needs to be a stronger compliance with respect to that. Because even for lead, all the HVAC equipments need to be commissioned, and the commissioning report needs to be submitted to the US GBC and so on. So all these things are, I think there's no compliance standard with respect to this, and mostly it's happening as per the owners and how they want to take it forward. And with respect to, I think we started with the importance of services. So I think as architects, we feel MEP services are not a separate component. They are something that is so intrinsically correlates with spatial planning, and even during spatial planning as architects, a lot of us during initial concepts do not take into account the right kind of spaces, the right kind of provisions MEP requires based on the project goals and objectives. So that is one area, because the right kind of MEP environment would provide the right kind of physical and physiological environment for patients to heal. I think he spoke about lighting. So when we are designing hospitals, we don't only calculate lux, we calculate equivalent melanopic lux, which measures circadian lighting. So all those nuances really make a lot of difference to how patients feel inside the facility.
Yeah, so my next question, next topic of discussion in this regard is, we all knew what COVID did to our hospitals and our service line, specifically to oxygen lines. In fact, more to do with electrical lines also. That came as a disaster which nobody planned. If we look at such a situation, how prepared are we for the next disaster, and what are the rules of this service lines in disaster management? It could be tomorrow, it could be like another breakout of an infection disease. It could be, a disaster could be in any natural disaster, or nowadays even an internet attack is also being considered as, if your digitization things stop, everything is connected. But how prepared our service lines are for any such natural or man-made disaster for future?
Yeah, we have all learned in last 2 years. So every hospital, whether it's a government facility or a private sector, they are augmenting their facilities in terms of medical gases. The primary medical gas is oxygen. So hospitals are implementing. They are procuring LMOs. They are installing PSA plants, so that they are not dependent on cylinders for their gases, and they have enough supplies. So their LMO will be there in case the supplies from the back end don't arrive on time. So they have their PSA plants, which can provide 93 oxygen, so that the supplies don't dry up. And for other gases also, like most of the hospitals have now augmented as far as MGPS is concerned. Regarding other services like electricals, they are also augmenting themselves. Although like DG backup has always been there, but now hospitals are getting ready for any kind of disasters which may happen. We have learned a lot from COVID.
I want to add. First, you can add.
So when you talk about disaster preparedness in hospitals, I think this is a very vast topic, and we all witnessed how hospitals across the world got incapacitated by the pandemic. And the primary reason for that was hospitals did not, during the design stage, we as architects and MEP engineers did not factor for any sort of resilience in our hospital designs. And when you talk about resilience, and disaster preparedness, there are three components to it. It's triaging, segregation, and surging capacity. Now, triaging and segregation primarily needs to happen in the emergency department design, wherein you are able to screen and segregate infectious and non-infectious patients, both mechanically as well as physically. I mean, from a space planning perspective as well as from a mechanical isolation perspective. If you're able to do that, you're able to save the non-infectious patients as well as the caregivers, because they need to render seamless care delivery throughout the facility. So that is one component. And the second component is towards surging capacity. So the American Nursing Association defines surging capacity not only as the ability to expand the number of beds. It comprises of 4S, that is staff, stress, structure, and systems. That is, there should be ability in the system to surge the number of beds. There should be right amount of space for staff to respite, to work. There should be right amount of storage spaces for medical paraphernalia in case you require to surge the number of beds. How we are able to incorporate this post-pandemic in our hospitals is we design spaces with some degree of flexibility. For example, in an ongoing Max hospital in Barparganj, what we have done is we've designed the entrance lobby as a flexible mass casualty ward. So in case there is a mass casualty or an infectious outbreak, there are provisions for medical gases, equity adaptable beds in the entrance lobby, which can double as a 50-bedded casualty ward. Now, doing that does not probably incur that much additional cost, but the outlook upfront actually helps the hospital to respond much better in case of pandemics. So those are, I think, small steps in this direction that can allow hospitals in future moving ahead to respond appropriately. And every hospital, I believe, has a larger responsibility in terms of just healing patients, in terms of community integration and enhancing communal health and well-being. So what are the goals and objectives every hospital, be it in the city center or in the outskirts, what are the goals and objectives, and how as an architect we can try and achieve that during the life cycle of the hospital is something we can look at.
See, there are two aspects to this question. One is the clinical care. So we have a system in clinical care where you have resilience, where you have capacity which you can add at a very short notice. Systematically, if we talk about it, you please read National Electrical Code. They have classified the hospitals into 4 categories. Category A, B, C, depending upon the size, as well as depending upon the specialization or level of specialization that you have to achieve. And then in NBC, we have already prescribed what will be the safety factors. Like for any building, whatever is the structural safety factor, for hospital, if you are making a similar building, you have to add 50% resilience. That means if an earthquake comes, hospital must be safe because it is an essential building at 150% of the stated static load. Similarly, for electrical, we have 20%. For medical gas, 20%. For HVAC, we have 25%. Because in HVAC, the air volumes will increase. The equipment should be capable of giving 125% in case of emergency. So, if you will see, read NBC and NEC together, everything that goes into a hospital, there will be a resilience factor. Now, people don't build that resilience factor into the building for reasons of cost, which is not correct. And we have a system of checking. You get a completion certificate, but even there it is not checked. That is the problem. Similarly, what he said, you have a trial. Today in Delhi or Delhi Nursing Home Registration Act, you have to make a disaster expansion ward which is as big as your emergency ward. People don't even make emergency ward. There is a question of making disaster expansion ward. So the remodeling, if we are making 50-bedded emergency ward, we are also giving 50-bedded disaster expansion ward. Disaster expansion ward is better than emergency because there you will be taking patients which you don't know. They may be, we had COVID, communication disease, or SARS or anything, or it could be ordinary. You have BP patients, you have gastroenterologist patients, but they will have the facilities from day one. Use it as a normal ward, When disaster happens, empty this and use it for the disaster expansion. So it is all built into the codes and acts which are operational in India. My request is please follow that. Tell your clients this much money has to be spent, because if COVID comes, then you don't look for another hospital. You have the extra space, extra beds within your hospital. Our interbed distance is 2.9 meters in Delhi, 3.3 meters in most of the other states. You go and see, it will be less than 2 meters. So where will you put the extra bed? Where is the extra oxygen? Because everything is worked on per square foot. So if you are not giving that square footage itself, every calculation will go wrong. So this is how we have built this resilience into the total system. Please follow that.
That's very good point. You know, all the measures and norms are there, which also were little came into shortfall when COVID hit. But even then, those norms are not being followed. I think one of the key takeaway from this discussion could be that, you know, whatever the norms are there, as architect consultants or contractors or building owners or hospital designers or, you know, the project fund people,
Even the
equipment suppliers, all these norm needs to be followed, which kind of brings me to the next question. I mean, I'll take a quick take from all of you, that when it comes to services, these medical gas services, fire, safety, electrical, where do you think the industry is going in future, and what you wish could happen in terms of technology, in terms of planning or implementation? If we were to sit here 10 years from now, what change would you want to see in the industry, in the service line industry, in next 10 years? If budget and everything was not like a constraint, if it's like a wish list.
See, I am a very happy person. I came from Oman. Dragar did my medical gas there. In my first 20 hospitals, they didn't even told me that medical gas has to be. When I tried to tell them, no, medical gas not required. Apollo was the first hospital where I did medical gas. 20th hospital. Now nobody asks me. Now if I do it, they say you have not done medical gas. So that change has already come. Next 10 years, I think we'll beat American standards. The American will beat it.
I would like to add that as designers, we put everything in place. Our fire safety is up to the mark, our electrical systems, gas systems, plumbing system, they're all there. But you know, we are not maintaining it, or like in terms of fire safety, we are not conducting drills, the staff is not trained. You know, if you see, the fire exits are locked so that people don't pilfer through that. But then what happens, you know, in case of fire, the patients are trapped. You know, those ambulatory patients, they have to be moved with the bed. How do you move them out? You can't, even if there is a, you know, refuge area, you can't shift those patients there. They have to be physically moved with their, either in wheelchair or in a stretcher or with a bed to nearest to the ground. So unless those drills are done, the hospital administration or the management, you know, considers that it is important part of their hospital. It will never be implemented. As a designer, we'll design everything, but things will never be used. The fire safety systems will not work. The exits are blocked. So it's kind of a fait accompli.
So, sir, you wish that maybe in 10 years from now, the systems which are in place, it's been used to its fullest potential, and in the right spirit and way with the trained staff. Then only we can ensure like safe hospitals and safe usage of these lines.
So I think for me it has to be a change in workflow, which has already begun. I mean, we've started using Revit, but Revit is not only for cost control or services resolution. Its benefits are much more than this. So nowadays we start project right at the concept stage on Revit and take the very same model, adding on incrementally the level of details, making it into an as-built model and handing over the same model to the operations team. So the disconnect that is there between the architects and the building operators and building managers is leveraged to some extent. when the building managers have a real-time model of the building with the systems running, they are able to understand the occupancy, to what efficiency the equipments are running, the reactive maintenance or the I would say the roadblocks. For example, you mentioned the fire doors. All that information is visible to a trained professional. There is higher level of visibility and there is lesser chances of errors and there's more predictive maintenance. So that change in workflow has already begun. It's about the industry to adapt that more and follow the path.
Yeah, definitely. You know, the use of technology in future is definitely going to be a game changer. So yeah, let's yeah.
See, basically, for fire safety in hospitals, we do progressive horizontal evacuation. It is a concept which is not new, but is being practiced now. What it requires, and it is given in National Building Code 2016. Your hospital building floor plate must have 2 wards. Now, when you go around, see how many hospital buildings have that, because you can evacuate from one ward to the other ward. When the fire happens, it takes time to spread, and these zones are protected up to 1 hour or 2 hours. So, these are the things which you have to know, the hospital people have to know, the hospital administration, everybody has to know, and then follow that. That is why fire drill is there, which he is mentioning. That is number 1. Number 2, today in India you are allowed to have a helipad on your building without permission. It is given. You are a hospital, 7-story high or 54 meters or higher than that, have a helicopter. Not for patient treatment, but for fire safety. If there is a fire in the building, how you will reach? Ames fire. Fire went up, how will you reach there? So after that, this amendment is you can have a helicopter. You can share the helicopter service. Similarly, when you are doing the trauma center fire, what happened there? Behind the operation theatre, there was a stack of newspapers, waste newspapers, paper, waste newspapers. The chowkidar was doing that. That is where the fire started, electrical fire. And that is where it spread. What is wrong with hospital building? Hospital building is a bomb. We are using so much alcohol. 5 into 5, 25 liters of alcohol we use every day in 1 lakh square foot in the functional area. So everywhere you have, somebody smokes and it will catch fire. It is only good ventilation that we have implemented that fires don't happen. Okay. Secondly, now every hospital is going to get medical oxygen, like he has said. They will leak. When you have given oxygen to the patient, when the patient breathes out, the oxygen concentration will increase. The law says if it is more than 25% oxygen in the environment, you should have minimum 2 to 6 air changes per hour. You can show me hospitals where it is happening. If it is not happening and you are locking up, it's a contained room, so that's a fire bomb. One spark, and all our electrical devices are spark. They are not spark proof. CE makes spark proof. We have also quote NEC makes spark proof. How many of us are buying? So all these things we have to look at. We can say, we can blame the government, everybody, but we have to do our part. We have to do this, then we'll have safe hospitals.
I think just to conclude on this, that the wish list and what we expect the industry to be in 10 years from now is definitely the standards are there, the implementation standards of these standards needs to be in place, and the designing and everything needs to be placed in, as per the standards, and this needs to be maintained and used by trained staff, and of course the use of technology to move forward in this direction, as well as a fundamental change of whether the hospital is safe to use. Somebody should certify it, and the hospital, it should be built in the pricing that we need to have a agency or something who certifies that these are safe to use. So everybody is accountable, the designers, the contractors, or the technology, or the users also. Everybody needs to take their own responsibility in making a safe hospital from a service point of view. I think on that we'll conclude this discussion. It's been such an honor to be part of this discussion. Thank you guys for your comments.
Thank you so very much for this great session over here.